Welcome to another episode of Soul Coffee. And today's guest, y'all, Jennifer Hoek, RN, BSN, RYT 200, is the nurse behind Nurturing Warrior, a safe place for nurses to find healing and reconnect to the love within. Over the last 5 years, Jennie has worked throughout the critical care line from adult ICU to PEDS ED to NICU. She noticed very quickly as a brand new nurse, nobody was providing healing for the nurses who were exposed to high levels of emotional trauma, bearing witness to some of the darkest moments of their patients' lives daily. It wasn't until she herself, deep in her own burnout, wondered why she ever even became a nurse in the first place. And she discovered this through feeling boldly enough to start pursuing and creating the future of nursing. I want y'all to just marinate on that for a sec. Jennie started blending the neuroscience of transformational healing that speaks to the nurse mind and the philosophical ancient wisdom of yoga and living from the heart. She now teaches nurses how to feel safe in their own bodies as they return from burnout to inner peace and the aspects of feeling that make them inspired to reimagine nursing from the heart, y'all. And I really feel that it is no coincidence that I was on Instagram, and as things were really picking on up with life coaching and working with burnout in the nurse and doctoral setting, this wonderful being literally just fell right into my Instagram feed, and I looked at her bio and I was like, holy shit, like you even exist. And I instantly messaged her, reached on out, and it was an instant connection. And it's just amazing to be able to have conversations with someone who is aligned with your soul's purpose. And I feel as though that is Jennie. So man, without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, y'all, with some snaps, Jennifer Hoek. Welcome, sister.
Hello. Am I supposed to welcome myself?
Nope. I mean, shoot, if I give you laser pointers and like all these things, man, I feel like your energy, like I just can't wait for people to just feel your genuine energy and your superpower, which is empathy and love at the deepest level.
Yes. Here for that. So excited to be sharing my love
Mm.
with everyone in this space.
And I know we've had conversations, of course, and I would love if you could begin to paint the picture of, man, what does nurse burnout even look like in the environments that you've worked in?
Yeah. Wow. That is going to be a deep, deep discussion.
Perfect.
My lens of nursing has always been through critical care, from the ICU to the ED, like you shared, and now in NICU with really small patients. But the thing that is unique to critical care is that we're really showing up in the most traumatic, painful moments of people's lives. Pretty much the worst possible scenario that you could ever imagine. That's what lands you in the ICU.
Mm.
And so the experiences that we have there are really being able to be adjacent to the kind of pain and suffering that we witness and really bring our light and love into those spaces. Unfortunately, the framework of nursing schools don't adequately prepare you for being an instrument of healing amidst death and dying. And so it's very jarring to come into these experiences and have no real idea of what to do with your own emotions. And so, nurse burnout in this context frequently looks like coming into the profession with all of this hope, compassion, empathy, love that you're so excited to be able to bring to your patients in these vulnerable moments and really bring them healing. And as you experience this repetitive exposure to trauma and are denied the space to really process your own emotional reactions, eventually you decide that, the feeling aspect of your job means that you're going to experience your own pain and suffering. So you decide that you're going to stop feeling. And this is really the depths of despair, in my opinion, of nurse burnout, is that we lose the connection to all of the reasons why we became a nurse because we're forced to turn off our emotional experiences and just move on to our next patient that is there needing us. So that was really my own journey with experiencing burnout, was losing a patient that I had taken care of for a really long time and going through my own grief and not having a space to heal for myself through that.
So the nurturing warrior, you could even say, was born out of a need for you needing to create more of a space for yourself, first and foremost.
Yes, absolutely. Nurturing Warrior became a space for me to express the difficult emotions that I was witnessing myself at the bedside and the things that no one else were talking about, which made me feel really, really alone. And as I started Nurturing Warrior on Instagram and started sharing my experiences as a nurse, there were so many nurses that were coming forward that were telling me, I've experienced all of the same emotions, I've experienced all of the same things, and I've never had anyone to talk with them about. And it just kind of spiraled from there because I was like hearing all of these nurses. I mean, I knew from my own experience that I needed a safe space to be able to express the difficult things that I was seeing. But then as
Excuse
I
me.
but then as I heard, you know, all of these nurses coming forward that were saying, I also need a space to heal, it made me
Yeah.
realize how systemic the problem was, that it wasn't just my own individual experience, it was every nurse not having the space to even speak to their own experiences. And there's a lot behind that of why
Yeah.
nurses don't have a space to express themselves. Um,
Why is it that nurses don't have a space to express themselves? Let's go there.
let's go there. Because nurses are very loving, giving people that predominantly identify as a giver, which means that they give to every single other person before they give to themselves. And that can be really beautiful, but it's also a huge framework that sets us up for burnout because
Yes.
we're so used to holding space for other people's emotions to make them feel comfortable and loved and have a space for them to heal, that we're afraid to even speak to our own emotional experiences because we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. And that was
Hmm.
something I found really profoundly. Like, nurses would say, this is my burden to carry.
Oof.
Like, I can't tell my friends or family about these experiences because it's just too much for them. And yet somehow it's supposed to not be too much for us as nurses to
Right.
carry all of this experience.
That's big. And I'd even love to touch on, because this was brought to my awareness through Jennie and our friend Michelle, who is also a badass nurse. Shout out to her. She'll be on this podcast sometime. The idea of a healthcare hero, quote unquote, as from my understanding, that carries a sense of martyrdom, or I believe I said that word right. But it comes with a sense of like self-sacrifice, essentially. And I need to carry this load by myself. Yet, man, I can, begun to explain to me, like, how many people you may take care of. But the fact that you get so intertwined emotionally and invested energetically in them, it can be a quite the process to, one, grieve, yes, but man, how to move in a sense with, yes, boundaries and yet a balance of service. And man, what have you found, how's that evolved for you the last few years to be able to be present serving yet at the same time not take on the patient's shit and all that they're going through.
A very fine-tuned awareness of the self. I can speak through my own journey in NICU specifically because we take care of our babies for a really long time, sometimes up to a year. And so, like you were saying, you know, your emotional experience gets very interweaved amidst that because you're taking care of these patients for so long that you're really a part of their family at the end of the day. We spend so much time with our patients that it's very difficult to fully separate your own emotional experience from that. I think the boundary is understanding what our role as a giver is. And this has shifted throughout the years for me of originally, I think when I found nursing, I was being reaffirmed for being a giver. Like I was this amazing person because I was showing up for all of these other people, exactly what you said in the hero commentary. And we make ourselves almost into martyrs by getting all of our fulfillment from giving. And so it wasn't until I started, you know, until I actually went through burnout myself and had to take a step back from it that I even found myself outside of the nursing identity, outside of giving.
Ooh, that's big.
Yes. And powerful, powerful. Because this framework, you know, teaches us that we are valued and loved when we give to other people. And yes, most of us that, you know, come into healthcare have this incredible thread of unconditional love. It's why we're here, to be of service. But there's something very different than that happens when we experience ourselves as that love. Ooh. When we open to receiving and shifting out of giving for a moment to other people to really feel what it's like to give to themselves.
I feel like that's absolutely massive. And this quote that I actually heard yesterday from one of my brothers, Kivian, shout out to him. You can put God, you can put universe, but he said, the universe will keep breaking your heart until it can just remain open. In this context, I'm thinking of your journey, for example. You are, and people are love. Love doesn't, I want to say, ebb and flow. Love is the glue of the universe that perpetuates it forward and unites us all. Love is the driver to evolution or progress. Love is the essence of what we are. And I'll say unconditional, or I guess, yeah, conditional love, something that's like fleeting or something that comes and goes. Man, if you can show up healing yourself, being super attuned to yourself, knowing who you are, and you have practice in place to remind yourself, you can definitely discern what is yours, what is not yours. And if you are able to show up as love, or the closest thing to it that you can for that day, because nurses have 12+ hour shifts, let alone no space to use the bathroom, let alone no space to eat anything, let alone no space for literally the self-care or things to nourish and take care of your vessel when you're on the shift, because then you end up depleted at the end of the shift. You have been in sympathetic, especially working in the NICU or the ICU, you're in such a sympathetic state, a part of your environment. If you don't have the processes to ground back down in between people or take a breath in between people, that's going to literally burn you out, because it takes a ton of energy to sustain a flight or freeze reaction versus the ebb and flow of then that going into a parasympathetic space, if you will. So the more that nurses can venture from, yes, being on point, yes, being, matching the tone of the room if need be. However, how well can you think and how well can you ground yourself in that parasympathetic state? And what I love kind of just sharing is you can be the primary oscillator. It's essentially, you are the sun for your people. And if you can show up as I don't want to say like a nice, cool, chill sun, but if you can show up grounded and as you need to and full of life and full of energy, you're going to amplify the medicine that you carry with your energy, even just by how you say hello, let alone the continuous interactions throughout the day and throughout the 100, 200, 365 days of the year. You might be taking care of these people, but your energy is helping lift their spirits before you even say anything.
Absolutely. And it feels very counterintuitive that in order to take care of other people, we have to take care of ourselves. But that is absolutely the foundation and been the biggest shift in my nursing practice, is that we can give so much more from this authentically full space that knows ourselves as love and is able to receive for ourselves. And we show up energetically, just like you're saying, so differently when we allow ourselves to heal and process our emotional experiences. And I totally resist that culture of not drinking water and not peeing and not taking a break for yourself. I'm like the obnoxious disruptor of healthcare on my.
Yes. What a fucking word you don't even know. Like, I just interviewed Dr. Crystal Jones, and her language is that of disruption to that which needs to be disrupted. And I think this is the perfect transition because in pre-chat, we were talking how, man, if nurses can allow themselves, give themselves permission to feel what they feel, notice what they notice, and to not necessarily get stuck in it, but honor in it, observe it, journal about it, then they can give themselves the permission on the other side to, one, heal their own shit, and two, be able to show up bigger, badder, and more integrated than before. And that comes with a very wonderfully feminine energy, where you've talked with that there's a masculine imbalance in nursing right now, or in healthcare. Care to dive into that?
Yes.
Yes.
So, the feminine energy of nursing, which we've shared a little bit in this conversation already, but is our connection to why all of us come to healthcare, regardless of gender. There's this nurturing, this compassion, this empathy, love, gratitude, all of these reasons we come to serve others. And there is this intersection with the masculine energy in healthcare, which is all about time, money, all of the corporate business stuff that guides how we're able to practice. And it actually crushes the feminine energy to be forced to practice in this way. It diminishes the time that we're able to spend meaningfully with our patients and focuses on numbers and tasks versus actual human connection. Oof. And that itself represses us to turn off our emotions, because we can't go as deep as we desire to actually be of service. And I really feel like the shift in healthcare is having, more balanced masculine energy, that instead of being force and time and money is more the grounded strength and container for this love to coexist between healthcare providers and their patients.
Oh, I wish y'all could see her wonderful smile, man. Like, oh my God, I hope y'all feeling this wonderful lady. Snap for her, please. Snap for her. Get a little water in your system. Readjust in your car seat. Take a nice deep breath on in. Cool. Diving back on in, as I feel like it's imperative, going through my own doctor's office, like coming on up through the system and shit. You have your primary care physician, and this is not got doctors, but it's like they're in a system of go, 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 go. So it's like, go in. Well, what are you feeling? What are your symptoms? Okay, well, here, have this prescription. But it's like we talked about with Marianne and the lifestyle prescription. It's like, but what is the cause of that? What's going on? And nurses are a wonderful bridge. I mean, as I feel like you guys, you powerful people, connect with them and foster that human connection. And if you're not present to your own emotions, let alone are emotionally available or have any space or energy within you, then that fluctuation of potential connection like can have a big impact on your care.
Yes. I think the biggest aspect is really listening to our patients, and that's what's coming forward to me from what you shared about your primary care experience. Was I think sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing on a medical level that we forget that we're interacting with human beings, which sounds ridiculous, but with how we're expected to move so quickly and have to get so much done, keep doing, we lose the connection to human beings and really listening to what our patients need. Because healthcare goes so much more beyond, just the skills that I can do as an ICU nurse. Like anyone can learn to titrate a drip or manage a ventilator. Those are task-based skills that anyone could learn how to do. But the art of nursing is our connection to our patients, listening and loving them. And that is the deep healing that actually happens. It's none of the medical things that I do as a nurse. It's in being present in someone else's experience. And health is so much more than just whatever landed them in the ICU. There's spiritual, emotional, mental health that are also drastically impacted by the environment that
Oof.
I work in. And sometimes those other aspects of health are actually where the real healing is happening, because they support the physical body in healing in the way that it needs to, in a much different way.
Yes, yes, and yes, because oh my God, I hope y'all heard that. The art of nursing is connection. Sip on that for some soul coffee for today, y'all. But man, reflective in my profession, it can be easy to do the x-rays, go through the analysis, and well, this bone needs to move this way because I learned P to A or posterior to anterior, inferior to superior, lateral to medial line of correction, and everybody has the same spine clearly. It's like, well, this needs to happen because it's misaligned this way. It's like we can get so mechanistic in our analysis, in our approach, that it's like, yo, you forget that there's a being there. So it's like, how soft are your hands? How present are you with your people? How aware are you of your own body, let alone for sustainability, purposes, so that we can see 100 people in a day or whatever it may be. And in those, say show up for 20 people in a day or 100 people in a day or 200, whatever it is, how present are you and how much of your being is with you? Because if you're to touch people with, one of my mentors, Dr. Rossi, says soulless flesh, is that going to be a negative or a positive along their healing process? And in an intimate setting where nurses like interact and you touch people, like chiropractors, we touch people, you're having a direct effect on their emotional body, their physical body. And like you started to hint at, the mental, emotional, and even spiritual disconnects can manifest as physical symptoms, as the physical symptomatology is a reflection of the status or the quality of health of the matter. However, what is the quality of the energy and what's not been processed or integrated that is showing up as heightened stress in the body, that is now in a building, being the hospital, of more quote unquote sick or sick people, in addition to the level of anxiety and stress that can be mitigated through who I see is nurses. Like, y'all get to literally be the thermostat and set the tone of the room.
Absolutely. And this is bringing forward something that one of my patients' families just shared with me recently.
Ooh.
And they were very perceptive of energy in a way that I'm not used to my family members being. But they flat out said, they were like, I know every single nurse here is incredible, but there's a difference in people's care that is subtle, but if you're paying attention, you notice it. And that is the nurses who are going an extra step for love and
Ooh.
bringing their care and nurturing to their child. And I just was
Oh.
like, yes, you're speaking to my soul. Like that is
Yeah.
the art of nursing, you know, like
Yes.
we're trained in all of these mechanical ways, but our patients and their families notice our presence, notice our energy that we're bringing to their healing. And we have this incredible ability to transmit love through our hands, through our hearts, even just stepping in the room with them. And they notice. And there's a difference in their own healing when they feel the person serving them is coming from love.
Have they, I mean, so they've noticed it, and I'm curious, and what are, I guess, quote unquote, what are the indicators that shows the difference? Like, obviously for you, I imagine that can be going home with a smile like that, which is amazing, you know, versus going home and feeling even more depleted, or you didn't make a difference. What are some of the indicators of that?
It's hard to describe.
That's why I was like,
So in the NICU, we have primary nursing where every shift we take care of the same patient, which is a relationship that you acquire between the family and you as the nurse. It's a decision together that you make that they are in agreement that you should be the person taking care of your child. And through my own experiences of that, it's just taught me the depth of my own love, the depth of how much I can personally care for a child and really go there. I mean, if we want to get like down and dirty with it.
yep.
I feel like, you know, so many people come to healthcare because they have never had a safe space to express love.
Oof.
And that is why they find themselves in these over-giving roles, is because they are just so desperately wanting other people to feel love because they themselves have not had that safe space to really feel loved and valued unless they were giving to other people.
Wow.
So, you know, like when I got to nursing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like I can love all of these people. Oh, this is so amazing. But it wasn't really until I got clear, you know, on what my own love felt like that I could have a boundary enough to be like present and loving without it being about me. Like removing the ego that needs to be the savior or the hero or
Ooh.
whatever.
Ooh. Yep.
And actually just showing up to be of service. And that was a redefining for me of what selfless service means. And it wasn't about abandoning myself to care for other people. It was actually, you know, instead of begging for other people to receive my love, to really receive love for myself, to realize that I was the receiver. I was the person that needed to experience my own love. I was the person who needed to come back to myself and really receive within. And once that like union happened of giving and receiving in equal breath, it was like, you know, my primaries, they taught me the depth of love. And then to experience the depth of all of that love within myself and what it felt like to have this flow of energy coming from my own heart, there was this shift that happened where it was like, okay, this isn't about me anymore. My service, it's not about me. It's just an expression of love, and it's this transient flow back and forth between my patient and me. And if I can show up and just be present in these moments, the simple moments of just changing a diaper or starting a feed or holding their hand, which is my favorite moment as a nurse.
Of course it is.
Literally having them hold my finger. But just to be so present in that moment is, I don't know, it's just profound. It's a different space to be in when you understand, you know, from losing patients, from losing these patients you've deeply loved, that it's not about life or death or anything. It's about each moment as it arises. And can we really love to the depth of which these children have taught me, and knowing them so expansively in every moment, with every baby, with every patient I take care of? And that has been my own healing, is to find that space.
Oh man, snap that shit. I love that you said selfless service is not abandoning oneself to serve. And that can help not destroy, but that can help transform or evolve the idea of healthcare hero to self-love permeating into allowing what needs to happen. Because like we said in the beginning, love is, and love doesn't have an expectation. It doesn't have a idea of what fucking healing results are going to happen, but that's the magic of it. And that's like kind of foreign for some people still, but it's like, man, when you show up in fullness of who you are, with the knowingness that something's going to happen when you show up in this being, you don't know what it is. And that's the beautiful thing because of it, because you can't measure love.
Mm.
You can't measure the level of intelligence that is at work divinely or naturally, that's in the body that you get to interact with. And when you can help hold a space of love, you're help giving another image of life for people. And that's going to manifest in their cells because they can feel you. And babies who are in theta, toddlers that are in theta, the way that they predominantly communicate is obviously visually, and it's emotionally.
Mm.
So if you're coming in super stressed, like, they will pick up on that. Or if you're coming in as Jennie does, kind of just, I imagine you just float into the NICU and you can hold a wonderful space for them and you can give them unconditional love. That emotion is how they are receiving information, especially if, like you gave an example, especially if they don't have parents. Or say in this time of COVID, parents can't be around them. And it's like, man, to be disconnected, to be severed from the woman that brought you into this world where you are going to get nourishment, knowledge, and information from breastfeeding or from even just being in their energy. They're getting downloads from that, literally downloads. And it's a download because the subconscious brain is more receptive in theta. And that is so, so powerful. And finishing and landing this plane, healthcare workers wanting to feel loved because they are devoid of it from self and from the come up of them. Like, wow. Wow. Wow.
Healers have so much inner child work to do around
Oof.
why they choose to be a
Oof.
healer. But it's really beautiful work, like you said. I mean, the NICU experience specifically, the parents, even in non-COVID time, it's relatively impossible for them to be there 24/7. And that's such a different experience than if a child is born healthily and gets to go home with their family. The experience in the ICU setting is very different. There's so much noise, there's alarms, there's all these things happening.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Makes
yeah,
sense.
it's even more important. And you'll find this in NICU nurses in general. They're the most loving people I've ever met. But there's
Oh,
just a different energy that happens there, and it has to be, because we are, you know, interacting with these babies who primarily are experiencing the world through their emotions. A lot of our patients don't even have the ability to really vision clearly already. So they're really taking in the world through their sensory experience, which is very noisy and chaotic in the ICU. So the person that's there to kind of integrate this love really is such a divine vehicle for, you know, their evolution as a human being as they leave the NICU and go on into the rest of their life. This love is so, so important there, especially.
oh, man, I love that. As you highlighted in the NICU, with all the machines and everything, it's even that much more unnatural of an environment. So how important would it be to show up in fullness of nature, which is love?
Yes, the nurture.
The nurture. It's like it was like the nature of nature is love.
Yes, I loved what you shared, your friend's quote, and I'm probably gonna butcher it, but about
Give it a
like our
go.
heart being broken over and over again until it can finally be open. And I think that really speaks to the unique experience of the NICU because
Wow.
it's there's so much heartbreak there.
Oh,
I mean, somehow in adult ICU, like it seemed okay that people were dying because they've lived long and fulfilling lives. Good for them. But in the NICU, we have
true.
like innocent, vulnerable children, and
Oh,
I had to go through so much heartbreak of losing them. But there's a unique wisdom that comes from being in loss continuously over and over and over again. And it really teaches you to value these small moments where you can show up in love. And there's a point where you've experienced so much loss that you're just like, dang, I don't think my heart can break anymore.
yeah.
It can confirm that every time I think that we're at the lowest point, there's still a lower place to
There's
go.
still more.
But it teaches you to navigate these moments with grace. And I've really learned that like the pain and suffering that we experience in being adjacent to these difficult experiences is really the way that love comes through. Like grief is just love being expressed in a different form. It's mourning the loss of life. And so I think being in this really challenging environment pushed me even deeper into my perception of unconditional love, and that it
Mm,
wasn't conditional on, form even existing, a child's life even existing. It was like the love that I began to unfold in my practice and the love that these children taught me still is going on and on. And there's this song by Beautiful Chorus, which I always reference in this moment, but it says, "Love will live forever in the infinite universe." And so I just kind of imagine all of these experiences where I've deeply felt love with these children, that love hasn't gone anywhere. It's still surrounding me. I still feel their presence in my life in many ways, in my heart. And so it kind of shifted my perspective a lot on what loss even meant, and away from kind of valuing love conditionally in that it needing to be a certain way in this moment, and allowed me to let go of things with so much more grace, because it just was like my love is still here, it still exists. Just because something is over or ending on this level doesn't mean that the love has gone anywhere.
because I love that you said love is unconditional. Unconditional love. It's like energy can't be created or destroyed. So it just transmutes differently. It just shows up and manifests differently in your life. And that's the benefit of being unconditionally love, as love will continue to just pour into your life in spaces, circumstances, events, and people and opportunities. And I imagine patience in ways that you never could have foreseen. And that's just so that's just so rich, as I feel with death, as there is a society that is literally terrified of death, that we get to, or those that traverse or are around death day in and day out, or week in and week out, that nurses are at the level that they are, and they integrate that. I've noticed those are some of the people, like you said, can love so bigly and amazingly and profoundly, because they literally treasure life that much more. And I believe it was Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. It was like, to suffer is to be human. And then it was like, to find meaning in the suffering is to survive. And what that now speaks to me is integration. how's your behavior going to change because of your experience? And for those around death so much, and even not being able to show up as they would like to yet, as there's a change coming, this will birth a new expression for our nurses, for our doctors, for environments and settings in hospitals. And I think that it will affect all of healthcare, really. As nurses, I feel like they really are the nurturing warriors of the hospitals and healthcare system, because they have such a deep capacity to love and serve. And that is just so beautiful.
Absolutely. I think that finding meaning in the suffering is an art all of its own. And I want to speak to that a little bit because
Please.
so often we get caught up in the why, like, why is this happening? Why? This is so unfair. Why is this child dying? Why am I here? Why am I experiencing all of this trauma? Why? And really, you know, the way to integrate these experiences is just to allow the emotions that are coming up, and this is specifically what I teach nurses, is to name the emotions that are arising instead of asking why something is happening, and really allow ourselves to feel them, feel what's coming up for us, and take a step back and really pause and be present in it. And that's what yoga and meditation have done for me specifically, is create the space from these really heavy emotional experiences to then identify from a place of stillness, from a place of presence, what action I need to take to move forward. And so it becomes less about like why these things are happening and how we can continue to show up as our most authentic self, even amidst the difficult stuff that is happening. Because the reality of nursing, especially in the ICU, is that we are going to continue to face these difficult situations over and over and over again. And so having that space and presence to really understand that we're there to be love amidst the suffering, to
Ooh.
be present and adjacent next to the difficult experiences instead of getting so
Mm.
interwoven into all of the emotions that are happening, to really get clear on what our own emotional experience is.
That's really powerful. I love that you word it as being adjacent to the experiences, because I feel like there's, when you're adjacent to it, that you don't take it to the face or you don't take it to the heart. You don't like fully absorb it, but instead you can be the observer and you're like, I'm noticing this even within myself. You can talk about self, I noticed this within myself. And you're holding a very potent container of expression for the family to provide knowledge, information, steps on, what's coming next, or when they can check in. And when you're able to be adjacent from things, you can, I imagine, tap into that parasympathetic realm a little bit more than if you were to just eat whatever emotional trauma just happened to the face.
Yes, I love that you're talking about that, because especially in the ICU, we're always in fight or flight. Like whether we're sitting at our desk or not, the 12 hours of our shift, we're 100% in fight or flight, because we have to be able to respond instantaneously, to something that's arising. And so we're just always on edge and
Mm.
are in it for so long that we forget that we're in it. Like we don't acknowledge that we're always amped up on adrenaline, waiting to unleash, waiting to react. And nurses specifically have a really hard time of slowing down and finding rest, finding, this parasympathetic nervous system
Mm.
winding.
Good word.
And it's been my most challenging work as a yoga teacher, is to bring nurses into rest. And that's what I feel really called to do in that space, because it's just like everyone just wants to keep going, because that's our baseline, is, the rest of the world's baseline is down here, and ICU nurses, their baseline of their nervous system is up here.
Mm,
They're always in chaos. They're always in fight or flight. And it's really difficult to pull back those layers to
my
say
goodness.
it's actually safe for you to
Yeah.
slow down.
Yes. And I love that you said safe, because that's like towards the basis of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First phase being like physiology. So food, water, nourishment, sleep. Then as you start to transcend things, like getting to that safety realm of things that allows for that parasympathetic charge. And I'm curious to other healthcare professionals and MDs or surgeons, how much are they on? And because it's not just something you can learn to switch on and off, especially when you've been so dominant out of necessity for things. So along with yoga, I can't wait for the days where more and more chiropractors who are woke and conscious and can help facilitate that. Like, imagine if there was doctors or even massage therapists or something, some means, some space holder for the space holders in nurses to be able to come back. That would be more sustainable, because you're not supposed to be on sympathetic go mode all the time. Like, that's the equivalent as if there is a bear chasing you the whole day, and now that bear isn't necessarily an animal, but it is the animal that can come with the needs and requirements of the hospitals. Yet how does that then impact the nurses in this realm, lives outside of the hospital, their personal relationships, their relationships with their furry friends? How do they show up for their families? Like, and what does that cost? Because when it comes to yoga, or when it comes to getting a life coach, or when it comes to any of that, it's like, you're going to pay for that, I'll say, unsustainable way of living in some way, shape, or form or another. However, it's going to be when you do pay for it, what is going to be the cost? Is it burnout of the adrenals? Is it I'd even fuck it, I'll say divorce? Or is it like because you're not able to show up? Because if you can't differentiate your work life from your family life, from your partnership, how will that intercorrelate and impact the rest of your life? And with this example, you being the sun, that's why I love that example so much. How are you then showing up for the planets that literally revolve around you, not just at the hospital, but out of the hospital?
Yes, this is like an expansive conversation.
I love it.
Just like I can speak from my own experience, the cost is high. The cost is very high if you can't find the space to step back, to choose rest, to really find healing for yourself. It bleeds into every area of your life. And I've seen it happen with myself, first and foremost. And I see it in every nurse that I work with. There is not a single nurse I know that is just a nurse inside the hospital. It's like, they're the primary caretaker of their children, of their 5 children, and they do all of the giving in that space too. And so it's just kind of this like
Ooh,
cycle
wow.
where we never have a moment where we're not giving to other people. And then eventually you get to a point where you're just like, I can't give to anyone else. So like, fuck everyone.
Right. And then what does that look like? Does it look like you snapping at your kids? Does it look like, how does that dis-ease of your soul manifest?
Mm.
You don't just give from an empty well. You don't just give like a few drops of water from it. No, you want to give from a full cup. You want to give with a bucket full of water. Like, trying to drench people, you know what I mean? Trying to be a pool. I want y'all to be, oh, that's good. I want y'all to be pools of reserves of energy and love. And that only comes with pouring into self before you pour into others. And that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing, Jennie, because it allows people, as I found, like burnout can correlate or can pertain from a disconnection from the soul or a lack of soul integrity. And there's nothing woody wah about that. In pointer terms, one of my favorite inspirational speakers is Inky Johnson. He speaks on people forget why they do things. People are disconnected from the vision of things because the adversity or the trauma or whatever it might be has made them forget who they are and why do they do what they do. That's why you need a purpose so fucking massive that's unshakable, that you can tap into and cultivate at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, or whatever. You can just think about like the big picture, because your purpose is your engine and your landscape or your vision, because you're not just doing this shit just to serve people. Like, yes, you are. And you got a vision for yourself in and outside the hospital. And if you don't have a vocational or career goal, now's an opportunity to think of that. Because it's like, okay, so you're serving, yes, yes, yes. And where are we going?
Yes, that was something that was super powerful for me in my own healing journey. Was I knew that my dharma was unconditional love. Like I knew that was my purpose. I've been saying the same shit. You can read it on my Instagram from 5 years ago. Like I've been saying the same thing before. Like I had my whole spiritual awakening before I went through all of this stuff. Like even before all that happened, I had the same philosophy. So like I know that the thread through all of this is my unconditional love, but I don't even know where I'm going with this. I kind of forgot,
Oh, I
honestly.
love it. I love it. Soul's journey, purpose.
The purpose, and then I found myself in nursing, like deep diving so deeply into that and being of service to other people. And it did consume my life. It did destroy my relationships. It did, sacrifice all of my personal life. And I realized something was kind of like a little messed up in this, because I was like, wait a minute. I'm giving all of my love, all of my energy to my patients and to my experience as a nurse, and everything else in my personal life is the cost of that, because I'm like, well, I already held all this space. I don't have any more space to hold for anyone. So it was like,
Damn.
my family, it was my partner, it was all of these things that were now the cost, that I didn't have any space to hold for them. And part of my own healing was getting really clear on having a boundary with nursing, of being like, yes, I want to be unconditional love for my patients, but I have to refigure out what this looks like, because also I have to be unconditional love for myself. And I want to be so loving and as expansive as I am inside the hospital with my partner or my family and all of the people that I deeply love in my own personal life. And so there had to be this very clear coming back to the self and understanding myself outside of nursing to really get that.
And that's big. That's what you're just saying right now, is the identity of, you said it earlier too, the identity of being a nurse. And, well, who are you outside of being a nurse? And the early lesson for me, I got this was when I was competing, running track, all my life, but in undergrad. And then I got hurt. I messed up my Achilles and I had a red shirt and sit out a season. And that was my senior year, which is supposed to be like the pinnacle of things. But we got this beautiful thing called a fifth year, in case you don't know. So it's like, in case some shit happens, like you got one more year. And I'm like, okay, thank God. Sweet. This is great. And in that fourth year, that's when I discovered chiropractic. I got the chance to build my identity, not as an athlete, because a lot of athletes, the trap is for burnout. The trap is for depression after school, when they don't go to the NFL, they don't go to the NBA, or they're just reminiscing in the glory days, quote unquote. They're trapped in the past because they've never established an identity outside of their sport. And for professionals, it's important to have a good work-life harmony, because there's life and then there's your work. Your work is not your life. You can have your life's work, but your life's work isn't even your life.
It's powerful.
It just dropped in and smacked me in the back of the head. Promise I didn't make it up till now.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we can breathe on that. That's good.
It's interesting. I love that you shared that you found chiropractic in the space that you got injured and weren't able to continue down the path that you were currently on. You had to step back and pause. And I think so much of my profound insight has come from very similar situations, along with losing my first primary, which was easily the deepest dark depression I think I've probably ever gone into, dealing with my grief from that. But I also injured myself in yoga teacher training really dramatically and couldn't practice yoga for half of my yoga teacher training, which was my only coping mechanism for healing at the time, was my
Ooh,
physical
right.
practice.
Yes.
And the universe was like slamming the brakes. It was like, yo, girlfriend, you are doing way too much. Slow down. And I'm sure I heard many times to slow down, to slow down, slow down. But the universe finally was
Boom. Right.
like, and in that time of being injured, I was forced into exploring other aspects of yoga beyond the physical practice. And it's how I
Ooh.
found rest. It's how
Ooh.
I found rest.
That's,
And
oh my God. Keep going.
yeah, I would have never stopped, I don't think. Like the physical practice was another space where I could just move energy and just like force my body into all of these like pretzel shapes. And the deeper that I got in that was like the deeper stillness I could find, because the more I pushed myself to my edge, the easier it was to find stillness afterwards. But having that removed from me, I was like, oh shit, now I actually have to sit with my mind.
That's
Now
the, ooh, that's the tough, and that's the tough shit. And it's like injuries are a blessing for you because similarly, I just, not that I hadn't cultivated myself at a high level outside of things, but the universe for me, what I've realized, even though I didn't, because then there's the ego, right? Because there's the ego, like, I have to be an athlete. Oh my God, or I have to be a nurse. I have to be a yoga teacher. Sprinting for me is where I used to feel freedom of just all things because it helped get me to where I was. And it even helped me get the scholarship to, to even run D1 in the first place. And I'm saying that one as an ownership too, but two, there's a freedom in that because through my injury, I was able to discover more of me that I maybe necessarily not would have found if that didn't happen. So it's like, Inky Johnson talks about, well, why not me? He's like, this is the perfect opportunity because he couldn't play football anymore after a hit he delivered and he almost died due to bleeding of the subclavian artery or internal bleeding. And you can appreciate that. And he lost function in his right arm. He's like, well, a lot of people would say like, why me? Why me? He's like, why not me? He's like, this is the perfect opportunity that I get to show people that you get to show up if you lean into your purpose and you can integrate, well, he didn't say these words, but if you can integrate the massive, massive fucking stimulus that can show up emotionally and literally challenge your ego or challenge your identity and the attachment you have on that, because on the other side you will be a more expanded you, because yes, you are a yoga teacher and a nurse. It's like, yes, I was an athlete, but I was also studying to even get into chiropractic school, and it's like that provided me more insights on to dive deeper and give myself permission to dive deeper. And I'm so grateful for it because now I get to even talk about this shit on a podcast with you and you got resonance with it. Like, it's nuts.
what up?
What?
I can safely say I probably wouldn't be here either without
Ooh.
having that time period to rest. I
Ooh.
mean, physical movement is so beautiful and it helps us find our awareness in our bodies. But the real difficult stuff, like you said, is our mind, our ego, what comes forward when we're in stillness. And because we're in this culture of doing and fight or flight all the time, and we're so activated that if that's our baseline, sitting still, finding meditation, finding stillness feels like chaos because we're
Wow.
not used to experiencing it. So our mind is the chaos because now we're suddenly faced with all of our thoughts that are stories that are running through our mind all the time that we've never been aware of before, but now we're forced to sit with them and really like notice what's happening. And for most people, that's enough to be like, peace, never doing this again.
Facts, because it's nuts because being Dr. Crystal literally just talked about this, like the stillness is where the magic is. Like the stillness, even when you're still moving. But out of the stillness is where you will begin to see, or what is most important will reveal itself to you when you ask the questions: what's most important? Why am I here? Who do I need to show up for? What do I need to do? Compared to just doing from the educated. But if you slow down, because in the parasympathetic, when you slow down, as I've also found that a lot of people, as this is a sympathetic dominant society, they thrive in the sympathetics when you are supposed to thrive in the parasympathetics, boo boo. Like, yo, that's how this shit is supposed to work. Rest, recuperation. If you think about it, without diving into the science, I mean, you guys are probably interested, so forget it. When you're in the sympathetics, like all the blood's going to your musculature, your vasculature, like it's pumping externally, like to your limbs, so that way you can move with vigor, with pace, and your heart rate goes up, and all those things. However, rest and digest, procreation, like that happens in the parasympathetic, where the blood has returned to the organs and there is more of a lower tone. Like that's where I'll just ask you all the question. Do you think that you will gain insights and these important drop-ins more so when your mind's like go, 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 or when your mind's like, okay? You answer that for yourselves. I'm just offering.
I love this. This is
This is great.
exactly what I teach nurses to do,
Oh,
honestly.
this is great.
Like when we're in the sympathetic nervous system, when we're in fight or flight, we're like in our minds. And when we are present with like these really dramatic emotional reactions, we actually can't tune into reasoning. We can't tune into logic because we're just reactive. We're like all over the place.
Yeah.
And the wisdom that I teach nurses to access is the wisdom that's intuitively within our hearts. And you have to be very still to tune into that subtle energy. It's like the wisdom is in rest when all of, you know, that energy is contained in our core, in our hearts, in the middle of us, just really tuning into that vibration of healing. And when we access that space, the thoughts or the insight that we have is very different from our mind and everything that we experience when we're thinking from that place. So I actually teach nurses to think from their hearts. Because we have so much access to wisdom in this space. And actually, I'm really passionate about heart math, and there's more connections from the heart going to the brain, like sending sensory information from the heart to the brain, than there is from the brain going to the heart. And so this is really, really powerful when we can tune into this space, because we can control so much of our experience by focusing our awareness in our heart.
I'd even say the energy that amplifies the heart, because quick side note, for any of my quantum physics fans, energy dictates structure, which then dictates function. Say that again for my people in the back. May have missed that. You might have been, doing something. Energy dictates structure, which then dictates function. A lot of people nowadays want to change and manipulate and try to control the structure to try and get the function, or try and get the desired outcome that they want. But they forget about the energy that sets the field for the structure to even move and groove as it needs to. So with what I mean, you're a doctor of life. I'll roll with it. With what Jennie was saying with the Heart Math Institute, there is a massive potential for you to garner and understand and move the energy in your being, the energy that makes up your vessel, so that way you can, how you say, amplify your field. Or it's like you can show up bigger, because the electromagnetic field, as there's if you're not aware, there's an electromagnetic field all around us as human beings. Like that's a thing. It's just a matter of how attuned are you to it, and are you looking for it, and are you listening to it, and have you trained yourself to listening to it? But that's another kind of like rabbit hole. But the electromagnetic field that can be amplified from your heart is massive, and it can supersede and is stronger than that which is created from the mind or created from the brain. Excuse me, brain and mind are two separate things, by the way, in case y'all haven't figured that out either.
What's really cool, about this whole conversation is that when we think of the emotions that we associate with healthcare, there are heart-based emotions: compassion,
Ooh,
kindness,
yeah.
gratitude, empathy,
Yes.
love, all of these things that we associate with our hearts. It's not what we associate with our mind. Those aren't the same emotional, experiences. And so when we can access this point within us that centers these emotions and really expand our magnetic field out from that space. So like I like to talk about energy in lots of ways. Energy moves up and down, but it also moves out from us, from our hearts. And when we can connect to these elevated heart emotions, that's what we're sending out to our patients. That's what we're sending out to our loved ones. That's what we're sending out in our field to surround people with. And so the more people that we teach, how to access these feelings, these emotions, come back to feeling these emotions, the more people we touch out in our lives that we pull into kind of this
Ooh.
field of love.
Yes. I love that you just pulled everybody in. Okay.
And that's oneness, right? I mean, it feels, I don't know. I,
Yeah, you
I,
do.
I've been very disillusioned almost with my own thinking because there's just like so many crazy things happening in the world that make you want to not go there, that make you not want to believe that. But through my own experiences in meditation and dissolving form and really just feeling energy, we are all one. And we have this incredible ability to bring other people into our love, into oneness, into union as the same frequency that comes out of our heart space. When there's nothing left, when there's no form, and there's just energy, we're all at our essence, just love, love, expressing love onto love and love and love and love and so on. And so
I love it. One line that describes it, there's different approaches in chiropractic as there's different flavors. I just think of them as different flavors at this point of chiropractic. And one of my favorite quotes from one of the best in the field is, I think it was Dr. Eric Rubin or Dr. Lou Corlitto or Dr. Katina Manning. Shout out to those three. Love them. It's one life force, different skins. Or one life force, different bodies. We're all stemming from the same source. You can label that source whatever you want. And one of my brothers, Dr. Chris Lee, I asked him, I was like, hey, bro, in your experience, what have you found like is missing in healthcare and leading to burnout, anxiety, depression, lack of results, business failure? He's like, there's no grounded philosophy, or the first thing he asks is if they have some understanding of a higher power. He's like, if they don't, he's found difficulty in helping them see a more expanded picture. And that makes sense, because if in your lens of the world that you look through, if there's nothing bigger than you, then I almost want to say you are your problem, or you can only see so minutely or so finitely. And that's what I love, where you're like, we can dissolve into like a oneness, or there's just a real ability as healthcare providers. Even look at our healthcare system. We have enterologists, we have OBGYNs, we have nurses, we have massage therapists, we have functional medicine docs, we have all these different facets to life, as health is just that. There's no one thing that's going to take care of everything, as everything is connected. And it's like, chiropractors not even getting the message on now. It's like, no, we're doctors of the nervous system. Everybody has a nervous system, and it's pretty in there, but we haven't bridged the understanding for other professions after 124 years, as well as other professions still don't know what other professions do. And it's like, I feel one thing as healthcare providers, we try to do all of it on our own, or we try to take on so much, when it's like, bro, like, why one, because that's that hero complex perhaps, but it's like, man, what would it look like if we would collaborate as one joint healthcare system, and we were able to build massive referral networks, and we were able to believe and trust in one another, and we were able to attest to someone's work, and we were able to test with each other, compared to this shit being like a competition. It's like, oh, someone's getting results. Well, so-and-so can't get help now.
Mm-hmm. I've really seen that in my own practice, like what a difference it makes when we come together, especially as nurses, and collaborating with nurses that have the same kind of viewpoints as me. I think we're taught very young as children to be competitive and to be threatened by other people's success. But really, what happens when we come together and collaborate, especially when we have a shared vision, is we're able to bring our unique gifts forward and our strengths forward, and that we don't have to be everything for everyone, because we have the people, that are showing up as their highest selves, and each person brings their own unique flavor or contribution to it. And that's how we create this really expansive vision of wellness and healthcare, and what it can be is allowing everyone to not try to be everything, but to show up with their highest gifts and bring those to the people that we're
Nice.
feeling.
Show up with their highest gifts and show up as their highest selves.
Absolutely.
Which is authenticity.
Yes. I love it. Kind of like threading back through the balancing of the masculine and feminine energy, my own framework through yoga. We speak of like Shakti or Kundalini rising to meet the masculine, the feminine energy rises to meet the masculine, and they don't. In union, it's not that one dominates the other, but they support each other in this beautiful experience of oneness. Like it's
Nice.
like they allow each other to be seen and fully expressed. And I just love that framework, and that's really what I strive to bring to my own practice, is seeking out the highest version of myself and allowing the other people that are pulled into my energy field
Yes.
with me to show up as their highest selves and really bring their gifts forward. I think that's the leadership we need.
Ooh. Nice.
Is to really own the gifts of your team, to own the gifts of your people, to know the gifts of each individual. And that's what's so beautiful about oneness, is it's not like dissolving all of our unique qualities. It's actually allowing our highest selves to come forward, right? And reconnect on this deeper level of unconditional love, allowing every single person to be seen, heard, and fully expressed as they are. And yeah, I just love it.
I love it because a true leader allows, yes, they can facilitate or delegate, but they best learn how to amplify each and every single person's unique gifts, so that way they can flourish and be leaders and facilitators in their own right.
Yes. I'm like the hype girl for everyone on my unit.
Yeah, that's needed.
My bestie is like the most incredible person at starting IVs, and so I literally made her the go-to person, because anytime someone said anything about IVs, I'm like, oh, there's Jocelyn.
Nice.
Jocelyn is the IV starter.
Yes.
I have a
Nice.
list of everyone's skills, and I'm not
Yes.
at all. But here's what I think is so profound about being a leader: is you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader.
Nope.
All you have to do is show up as yourself, to know yourself so deeply and show up in these environments and own your gifts. And by doing that, you give other people permission to show up and own their gifts too.
That was like the closing line to the conversation beforehand. being able to give permission to people just through your expression. Yeah. Me too. So, Miss Jennie, would you care to offer any resources or anything that really helped you along your way for our listeners? Whether it be book, whatever, all things.
Let me think on that. I should have reflected on this probably before. Just now
That's
I'm
fine.
like,
Whatever drops
uh,
in. It's a very juicy. It's been a very juicy. It's been a very juicy conversation. So I'm just super grateful in that capacity.
I think, my recommendations for people are really just to follow what you're passionate about. Like I teach mindfulness through a yoga perspective. And so all of the stuff, that I would want to share with someone are through that lens. Like I have this stack of like 30 books next to me that are all about yoga, like I'm so passionate about that is what I want to learn about and where I do all of this
Yes.
learning and studying all of these, spiritual texts that have been the foundation of why I'm practicing what I'm practicing.
Nice.
But I'm really cognizant, like yoga's not for everyone. I mean, I think it is, but
I was like, or is it?
I mean, it is. But the thing of yoga is that it's not about like waving our arms around and getting in these really cool pretzels. It's about being present with ourselves. And so I find
Nice.
it's more about where we can drop into peace with ourselves. And for other people, that might be like running track. For someone else, that might be painting. For someone else, it might be cooking. Like there's all these different ways that we can practice mindfulness. And so I really, don't encourage anyone that they have to be exactly like me, that they have to use the tools that I've used to find peace within myself, but to really listen to your own needs, listen to
Mm,
what interests you, listen to what excites you, like
yes.
record yourself, watch your own face and how you respond to certain situations. Like what this is what I love about doing coaching work is like we get to see this in other people, right? Like we're
Yes.
watching them and we're just like we can tell where the fuck yeah moment is because their whole energy changes. And so, I think healing is this continuous journey of really knowing yourself and really listening to what you need. And that's not what I need. It's not what,
It's
Jamal needs.
beautiful.
It's not what anyone else needs except for you. So I encourage people to follow their hearts. And the library, that's my favorite resource. That's my favorite resource for people because I'm just like, you could find any information that you wanted to in the world. Like, Google it, go to the library, check out a book on something you're passionate about, and follow your heart, follow your service to where it's meant to be.
Thank you. And if you guys haven't figured out, you can follow her on Instagram at Nurturing Warrior. Is there a hyphen in there at all?
No, just one
Because
word.
she's the original,
The OG.
the OG. Any other programs or any way that others can find you on social media?
Yes. I also have a Facebook community, which is the same name, Nurturing Warrior, High Vibe Healing for Nurses. And in that space is a little bit different than Instagram because we really have a community there where we're able to dive into these topics deeper and be supported by other nurses. And all of those resources are free. There's discussions and meditations and sound healing and lots of cool stuff to
Oh,
experience in there. Obviously, I also offer mentorship for nurses, and that is arriving shortly. We're just about to dive into a group mentorship program, and I offer one-to-one healing sessions for nurses too. And some nurses prefer that, and that's an incredible space to work
mm,
one-on-one.
super fire. Well, thank you for the amazing episode thus far. And the final question for you, Jennie, is how would you describe your flavor of soul coffee to the world?
I love this question. I'm like not sure if it's metaphorical or it's actual coffee
Oh,
flavor.
it's whatever you want it to be. That's the magic.
I'm pretty sure my soul coffee flavor is the same as my preferred coffee of choice, which is a honey lavender latte. But my soul,
That's yeah. That sounds like Jennie.
a little honey, a little lavender, a little love. There's like lavender and rose petals sprinkled on top of it. And that for me kind of describes the whole balance of of what I strive to do in my expression is to have this balance between energizing and rest and really
Mm.
fulfilling them together. And so,
Mm.
we have to find that space for us where we can be really loving and present with others and also return to the love and healing within.
Mm.
So I think that's a beautiful play on my whole philosophy is the mix of like lavender and breast and healing with the more energizing effects of espresso and
Yeah. Oh my God. You killed that shit. Hell yeah. I wish y'all could see her like dancing and like waving. Like you guys will see. There'll be a YouTube video. There's always if y'all not watching YouTube videos, watch the YouTube videos. Well, y'all, thank you for tuning in. Jennie, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation and what I think is the beginning of a new expression of healthcare and what that could potentially look like. So y'all stay tuned, man. I'm definitely going to be connecting with this wonderful soul and more with ideas that are cooking